Hello and welcome to ZED Talks. And I am thrilled to have Craig with me today. Craig actually and I met last year, and Craig was the first person to come on a ZED Talk with me. So this is a little bit nostalgic because we connected, we started talking, and Craig is doing something that I absolutely believe in. And we're going to talk about that today live. And we're going to dig into it. And it is all about route to result. That is Craig's developed framework. I'm going to let Craig introduce himself. Ladies and gents, this is Craig Pattison. Welcome, Craig.
Thanks, Zoe. Thanks so much for inviting me back. And the privilege, of course, of being the very first ZED talker, which I really enjoyed, actually. It was a no holds barred, unscripted, just lay bare, which I really enjoyed. And I've enjoyed watching many of your podcasts since. So it's great to be back and great to be talking about route to result, which I developed, last year and continue to develop. I mean, it's like anything; it should never be finished, but continue to develop, which is all focused around executive coaching for CEOs, C-suite, senior leaders who have, let's be honest, pretty tough jobs nowadays. Always have done, but I think they're getting even tougher.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Craig. Well, welcome and thank you for bringing your expertise. And if you don't know much about Craig, and you'll have links in the description, you really should check out because Craig has a trajectory in HR, but not just HR, but also technology, which is so relevant. And we're probably going to touch on that as the conversation unfolds. So as Craig just said, unscripted, unfiltered, and unedited. So this is not AI generated. And you can tell that because you might hear a little bit of swear words, you might hear something that's, maybe not, it's a bit unorthodox, and that's okay. That's what we're all here for. So I'm really thrilled that you've come back, and I love that you've been following the journey as I have with you. So let's get into it. I really feel that I'd love to know because I rub my hands together because I feel that this is really important. For anyone listening, you don't necessarily need to be a C-suite for you to resonate with this because you're all on a trajectory, you're all on a journey, and you're a leader in yourself. So there's a lot of things that we can learn from this. And obviously Craig has an audience, but you can still learn as in self-leadership. So there's a lot of nuggets that I'm sure that you're gonna learn from this. So in response to that, Craig, can you give us a snapshot of route to result? And I flipping love the name because there's a root cause and there's an outcome, and that is so clear, and I love that. So bravo for that. Sorry, I'm very excited by it. So over
Thank
to you.
you, and I share that excitement, which it is a name that really resonated with me, and it was really born out of the fact that for me, coaching needs to have an outcome. And I know that not every coach agrees with that. But for me, it is a luxury to have coaching. It is something that shouldn't be taken as something that's offered to just anybody, really. It is something that's quite precious. And if you get the opportunity, I think it's really important that people feel there's been something that's come out of it. That bottom line what it's about. It's about exactly what you said, but it's about starting with the outcome. That outcome could be something that needs to be delivered. It could be, for example, a new job, which happens for a lot of people going into a new role. It could be about something somebody's highlighted that maybe isn't working. It could be a board member, it could be a peer, colleague. But it starts with that outcome. And I think the important thing is to get really clear on what it is that you're looking to get from this coaching. And that's the real starting point. We spend quite a lot of time talking about that and really uncovering that. Because one of the things that I really believe is important is that it's about patterns, not labels. By that, what I mean is that looking at how you operate, on a consistent basis, what's worked in the past, how you want to show up in the future is really important. The problem with labels, as I see it, is that too many people now are sitting behind a label, which can be self-defining and self-limiting. So for me, it's about identifying the outcome, but very focused on patterns. It's about patterns of behavior and patterns of leadership and how those will deliver the outcome.
Oh my gosh. So I'm having to write things down because my brain is going into a million different places at the moment. So thank you for that. Um, Question. I don't have the answer, but I'm curious to think, should coaching be a luxury?
I think the sort of coaching that I'm offering, um, I think it should be taken as a luxury. I don't
Mm.
think that means that it's exclusive or that it's only for people with certain deep pockets or funding, but I think it should be seen as something that, for it, if it's really coaching that delivers, then I
Mm.
think it should be seen as something special. I suppose that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I mean, I love that fact because I do think, everything can, it depends on your perspective as how luxury, because I redefine luxury. I think luxury is a feeling. I don't think it's necessarily a thing of wealth, right? So lots of people attach it with money and wealth. I think it's a luxury to be able to enjoy things and experiences that grow and develop you. So I think the biggest luxury that we can have is self-development, but you've got to drive it, right? So
Yeah,
and actually that hits on the point of it becomes, so let's talk about problems we're solving. And I think we need to keep that front of mind. Every business exists these days because they're solving a problem. They are serving an audience that has this specific thing that they want to achieve, whether it is apparel that they're selling, whether it's a service of, coaching, and whether it's food, right? There's a thing that we are serving or
yeah,
problem that we're solving. And I think that that's something that is not always explored in coaching, if I'm really honest. I think it's a nice to have. There's a problem, let's get a coach. Now, it depends obviously your geography because US have a lot more openness to therapy and coaching, which, I'm not sure is good or bad, but it just is. And then you've got us in Brits that are a bit more reserved about it, but typically we've only had a coach or it's known. There's a bit of stigma attached to if I've got a coach, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Because typically there is something that needs to be refined or done with that needs some support. So I think that that's where the labels sometimes come from, and actually that shift that into patterns. So to look at the root cause is what you're suggesting in terms of what's the root. So you've got an outcome that you want to achieve, the problem that we're trying to solve here. Well, I'm doing it here and my hands over here, over here, and sort of what is the root cause of that. And I think that that is the key point, and maybe I'm over talking about it, the key point I want to land. There's a root cause to a behavior that's happening or not happening. And that's so important to get to that root cause. And
yeah.
before you get to the root cause, because getting to root cause can often be a bit tricky,
Mhm.
and sometimes a little bit vulnerable and emotional.
Yeah,
You've got to know what you're striving to get out of that thing. So
absolutely.
these are reciprocal things that I think not everybody in coaching really understands. That lots of people call themselves coaches, but they don't apply a framework. So
Yeah.
your method applies this wonderful framework that people can actually get an ROI on, whatever that ROI might be.
Absolutely. That's the plan. That is the plan. That's the focus. And I think that it's yeah, it is very much around making sure that people um, really understand what is going to make a difference. And I think that's what I was saying when I was talking about the luxury is that we don't get these opportunities all the time.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
don't come around all the time. So use it, but don't just use it when something has gone wrong. You be proactive as well.
yeah.
We all know what it's like going into a new job or maybe starting an assignment that we haven't done before. And I think coaching can be a really great way to help people to get through that in the best way that they possibly can. And it doesn't always need to be funded by the company, it can be funded by yourself. It is an investment and therefore it isn't cheap. It isn't unaffordable though. But that's why I sort of couch it in that way. But I think you're dead right. If you can understand what the outcome is, then go inward, a bit retrospective. That's where a lot of, as you say, coaching starts. We do cover that, but we have to be focused on the outcome. We can't forget that. We can't just sit and be introspective and insight led. We have to be focused on the outcome, and we always come back at the end. Once we've gone inward, we always come back to say, okay, what behaviors, what influence has changed to enable that outcome to be a reality? And I think that's really important. That's the journey.
Yeah, that's the learning. It's not like you just rock up and kind of have like a session and then there's no action that's followed. I think there's that is the thing that in my younger years, I had a coach very young, and I've had some wonderful coaches, and I've had some not so wonderful coaches. And maybe it's not the coach that's the issue; it was me. And I think lots of you've got to understand. I think there's an awareness of an individual taking that journey that it is on you. It is on you. It's your development. It's something you need to do, and you need to participate in actively, proactively, and take action. It's not like somebody's going to tell you. They'll guide you and nudge you into different areas, which I imagine that's what you're doing with your coachees. But I think there's also sometimes when you get to C-suite, there's much more ego involved,
Yeah.
and that can be a bit of a block. Do you agree or disagree?
I think it can be, but I'm pretty confident that when you start getting into when you start peeling it back and people recognize that you've been there,
Yeah,
you've sat in that seat or a similar seat, and that you've got uh, solid experience, both as a coach but also as an operator. I think that starts to break those barriers down because you're talking a similar language. So
yeah.
and again, this is where I talk about there is a place for retrospective, insight-led coaching or reflective coaching. I don't have a problem with that at all. But I think with route to result, what I'm talking about is something much more grounded.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, tangible, tangible. So actually, a little story, quick story. I'm at Tony Robbins' event, Unleash the Power Within, and I was crewing. So what does that mean? Is I've been to multiple events of his. In fact, I think I've been to every single one and several times. So I've spent a lot of money and time investing in Tony Robbins, and I love it. I think it's very relevant and it's powerful what he does. So the last time was in Birmingham, and it was about 3 years ago. And I happened to be working in the production office at the Robbins, so I did get some interaction with the man himself. But there was one woman, and she said to me, "Now, the Robbins, let's be clear, he offers a contained coaching space for 85K, and that's just to enter, that's just to be in the room with the people. You have to then pay for the experiences. There's a lot of experiences in person, and ultimately it's opening you up to a network." And there was a woman there, and we got on fabulously well. I can't remember her name. I think it was Susan. And Susan was saying, "I'm a founder of two businesses. It's going brilliantly. I'm looking for a coaching space." And we talked about like coaching and what she was wanting to get out from it. And she couldn't really give me concrete, but it was like think that she felt pressure to do more. And so in discussion, and I think I helped to make that decision, if I'm really honest, because I just asked her a bunch of questions. But she said to me, "I'm not sure I can afford it." And I said to her, "What car do you drive?" She said, "Oh, I've got two." I said, "Oh, what cars?" And she went, "Well, I've got the Maserati and brand new, very proud." And I said to her, "Sell a car and invest in yourself. You can afford it because it's sat on your drive."
Absolutely.
And she was like, literally taken aback. And I said, "Susan, you've just sat here and told me for a good hour that you really need this next part in your career. You need it to get where you're going. You're telling me and flagging to me and signaling to me that this is a program that you want to do. And then in the next breath, you're saying you can't afford with two very expensive cars that are more than 100 grand on your driveway.
Mm, mm.
I think you can afford it."
Absolutely.
And that
Absolutely.
was a moment that something changed in her, and she said, "You're right." She went and signed up. Now, what Susan did, I don't know, but it got her over the line because she realised her pain. That I said a car's a vehicle, and coaching is too, but this one's going to get you much more of those on your driveway than one of those. It's not going to multiply in value. You
That's
will, your mindset will, but you've got to be clear about what you want the outcome to be. So even if it's 10 more Maseratis and it's money, you've got an outcome that you want to go for. Anyway, it stuck with me. And I don't know where that come from, but in my mind, I was like, the barrier of money can be really real. And actually, this isn't about money. This is about your value and your worth and how you respect yourself and how you want to grow. So do you invest in yourself is the ultimate question. And most people say, "Well, I want to." Then so go do it. Just be intentional about it.
I think it's a great story, and I love it. I mean, I think the key thing though is to understand what you're investing in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Clearly, she wanted Tony Robbins, program.
She wanted the network. She
Yes,
wanted the network.
but it was valuable.
Yeah.
And she, as you said, you can't really put a price on that, really. It, the car will depreciate, her learning and her development hopefully won't. It'll
Yeah.
grow. And I think that, fortunately for listeners, I'm not at the 85 grand. So, from that perspective, they don't need to worry that much. But I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it.
Well, it's value. You offer value for what you do. And of course, I think that is an important factor. I think when you get to a certain level, it becomes less about money, more about outcomes and like time investment and stuff like that. So, Craig, tell us what it's like then working. What does working with you look like, and the route to result. How there's a process that you do without giving too much away, because we want people to be curious to come and talk to you directly.
Absolutely.
But tell us about how the framework is embodied.
Yeah, yeah. So it's based is there's 6 phases to the framework, and they're all uniquely. I've designed them all uniquely. Um, we work through them methodically, but not getting stuck on things. We move through with pace. I do believe in coaching with challenge. I think that's really important. I think it's really important to listen. So when I say active listening, I like to take it way beyond active listening, looking at everything, because I think that's where you find the things that people are not telling you, and that's really, really important. We get into so once we've understood the outcome, as I say, we move inward. But we're talking about things like, and one area that I find very interesting is that people talk about values. Okay, and this is a section of the introspection that we do look at. But I'm not worried about values. What I want to understand is red lines. And for me, there's a big difference between values and red lines. We can all sit by a load of things that say, treat people as I like to be treated, for example, could be a value, or integrity could be a value. But what about when the shareholders or the investors are breathing down your neck? What's the red line on that integrity, on that treating people how you like to be treated? That's what I really want to uncover, because it's during pressure that you're really going to find out how people really operate.
Yeah.
And is that behavior, is that style, is that influence going to create dividends when under pressure? And that's what I'm really trying to get underneath. So for me, that's a good example of an area that I think my process takes people to, that not all coaching does. Another example would be, and I'm a big one for looking at instinct. And I think that instinct is massive when you get to senior positions. And it is across the board, but I think that we're talking, these are big decisions that are made. And any senior leader, CEO that I've worked with that is good, listens to their intuition. They take their gut instinct. But the way that I frame that is looking at that as an element of data.
Yes.
You can't just take gut instinct and run with it. Again, looking at a pattern, you have to look at, well, what from that gut instinct has served me well in the past? Where's it coming from? What's it going to achieve if I just go with that? And I think that consciousness is really important. So that's another area of the model that we walk through. As I say, there are 6 stages to the model, but the important one is we always go back, as I said before, to what I call return to fruit, because the outcome I call fruit. But we go back to that outcome, and we look at, okay, through looking at the patterns, looking at the behaviors, what's changed? And that's what's important. What has changed? What has moved? And if nothing has changed or moved, then quite frankly, between us, we've not done a particularly good job, because something should have. And in my experience does, because people, if you're coaching in the right way and you're being challenging, you're being observant, you're really putting people in positions where they have to really reflect and challenge themselves, that change does occur.
Gosh, there's so many questions around that. And I think that this is a really good point to talk about, being open to being coached. I mentioned this earlier on. I think when you get to a certain level, there's an ego at play often. And to have that build, so to relinquish that or to feel safe enough to let that guard down, because we're all humans. We're all very simplistic in that way. And I don't mean to oversimplify, but we are still human, regardless of our job title, our status, how much money we earn. We're human, and we've got feelings and emotions, and uh, they don't, your feelings and emotions don't label you because you're a C-suite or because of whatever. So when you feel safe enough, like picking a coach is also a real process, and doing your due diligence on a coach and understanding if you can work together, because ultimately it's not about having always about education or always about letters after a name. My phone is going off and we're not going to do that. So I've got to put the phone on silent. How naughty of me! How naughty! Uh, but what I think is that you've got to build that rapport and have the coach that's right for you, and really dig into those outcomes. Um,
Completely.
and I think for anyone listening, I'm curious to know, Craig, what's your process to, so I believe it's a bi-directional evaluation. So I have to look at somebody, if I'm going to coach, and think, are they coachable? Are they open and available? Are they willing to do the work? Because if they're not, it's not going to be successful. So what do you look for? Equally, if somebody's looking for a coach, what should they be looking for? We've already established that they need to have some outcomes. What makes you want to work with somebody? What's that temperature check?
Well, one of the things that I did quite early on, probably made my life harder, was to be very clear that I wanted to work with really with C-suite and above. And that's quite narrow in focus, because a lot of coaches will work with mid-level managers. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think for me, it was about the fact of my personal style and experience, what I bring to coaching. I think I need to work with the more senior operators, because some of the things that I will challenge and provoke may not be appropriate for people
Yeah.
further down the organisation. And I wouldn't want to be in a position where you're maybe making people feel uncomfortable unnecessarily. So I think for me, it's not about personality. It is about firstly level, and then it's about openness. But even people are not open. I'd see that as a bit of a challenge. If,
Mhm.
I'm quite happy to do that. I've done that throughout my career. But I think, for me, I want to work with people who want to go on the journey. Ultimately, they feel that there's something that's a niggle, even if they're brilliant at everything. There's one niggle they want to scratch, and that's holding them back, and that they could be better at. They're the people that I want to work with. But I think for the client, selecting me is really, it's a personal thing. Not everybody's going to like my style, and that's fine. Not everybody will want to work with me, but what they will get is honesty. They will get, as you pointed out, a framework which I think is robust. They'll get a journey that they can go on, and they'll get reflection from that they'll be able to use ongoing, even after the coaching is finished. But they will be challenged, and they will get directness. If you don't want that, and you want it to be a sort of nice space, but the other thing I should say is it will be 100% confidential.
Mm.
If you just want a nice, warm space where you're sort of agreed with, or your behaviours or patterns are reinforced, that isn't me. It's not worth coming to me for that. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm very
You're not
clear with.
paying to like me, you're paying to get a result that is exclusively for you, as in your result, your impact. I think that's a really good point you've just said about Craig, and it's making me think about something. I've always traditionally thought that you should pick a coach that you have great rapport with, that you have confidence in, and that you get along great with. I'm not sure I'm having that view anymore. I do believe that you need confidence that that person is going to be your person and they're there for you.
Yeah.
But I also would invite anybody, the more somebody challenges you or triggers you, you probably need to work with them. I don't think that having complete alignment on everything is a good thing. I used to think that
Mhm. Mhm.
until now. I actually, if somebody triggers me or annoys me in some way, I actually think now, hmm, they've evoked something in me. It's not them. They've just already they've already raised something that exists within me. So I'm very curious of like why I'm responding to that in this way, and what is it that I'm being mirrored back to myself. I think that there's Um, there's an easy route. And I think that the easy route is to have somebody that's easy on you and says the right things. They're being paid. So there's a little bit of fear that they might stop being paid,
Yeah.
because you're not, you need to be nice. I call bullshit on that. And I say that you need, to anybody that's listening, if you're thinking about having a coach, because you know deep down that there's something that you need to overcome, you need to connect with somebody that's going to nudge you and make you shift. And that
Yes.
can often be very uncomfortable.
I think so. If you want to treat it, as I said, if you want to see coaching as as we talked about, as an opportunity, as a leverage, as something that's going to move you forward, then I think yes, you have to look at it that way. Because if we just get positive reinforcement all the time, what are we really getting? I mean, I think of I won't mention who, but I think of the worst manager that I ever had. But how much did I learn from that person?
Oh, an awful lot.
Yeah. Did I like it at the time?
No.
No. I did it. Did I learn a lot from them? Absolutely. Did I learn more from them than somebody who was too nice, too pally?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for, again, comfort, right? Comfort. It's not comfortable to stay comfort, because that's where your growth, it gets completely stalled. And if your growth gets stalled, then typically your career, your business, your life will follow the same trajectory. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Um, I think everybody should have a coach in their lifetime. I mean, I really do. And that might not be your coaching at this moment, because they're not at that level. But I do think it's very lonely being at C-suite and above. I think there's a lot of loneliness that comes, and a lot of pressure and lots of visibility when you get wrong decision, like you take decisions that are wrong, or they're perceived to be wrong. It's very lonely. So, um, the relationship that you have with your clients, I know that confidentiality is a big thing.
Mm.
Do you form kind of like, are you available for your clients at any time, or are you very structured, or is it dependent on them, so that you do form this? And I'm sure that you do get friends along the route, as in professional friends, not that that's the main goal. But like, how do you typically work with people, or is that driven by them?
I think the important thing is you want to have you do want to be personable. Obviously, I probably made myself sound like I wanted to be the most hated coach ever.
Oh, no, 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 not at all, not at all.
Not the intention. Hopefully, I will get on with people. That would be a real plus. But I
Craig,
think that
Craig,
if,
Craig, I've got to say, sorry to interrupt. You are the loveliest man. There is no way people can't get on with you. And I say lovely in the sense is that you listen well, and you are, I can't imagine anyone not wanting to work with you. Sorry, but I've got to say that.
thank you. Hopefully, that's the case. But I think. Look, I don't want to just say, "Oh, well, it depends on the individual," because I think that's a bit of a glib sort of easy way of getting out. But I think the important thing is you don't, as the coach, want to be the crutch. And
Mm,
the level I'm working at, I wouldn't want to be on speed dial 24/7,
yeah,
because I think that I don't think that's particularly healthy either. But I think certainly coaching sessions typically are about 90 minutes. 60 minutes of that would be quite planned out, quite structured, and then you would have that extra half an hour for the niceties, the pleasantries, etc. But also, if there's a risk of overspill, that we're not then clock watching and saying, "Oh my God, we've run out of time," because that's just wrong. So I'd always book in a 90-minute session, and I would absolutely say to people that if there's something that's really critical that you want to speak to me about, then I am available by phone. But if it became like a crutch, I,
yeah.
I, I would bring that up with the individual and say, look, this doesn't feel that this is the right way to go with this. So yeah, I don't know whether that answers the question.
It
Hopefully,
does. It does. I think it allows for flexibility. I think what we're demonstrating is that there's not a cookie cutter approach. There's a framework, but there is room to nuance in that.
completely.
And so you mentioned about being pacey. How long do you typically work with somebody with the framework? And is it a 6 month or 12 month or 3 month? What's the usual time span that you see results?
Oh, see results. Yes, the minimum's about 3 months, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
What we're doing. But typically, I would say assignments are 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
And I think that it's good to have a good period of time in between coaching
Mm.
sessions, because we're working through a framework. We're getting different learnings in each step, and I
Yeah.
think it's important that that the client is able to go away and demonstrate and practice and think about, how they might utilize certain things that have been discussed. Some things will work, some things won't, but I think you need time sometimes to see that. The difference, and the area that I think is slightly different, is transition coaching, because often you need to hit the road running. So transition coaching typically is 3 months,
Right.
and probably six to nine sessions. But my view would be transition. You need, as I say, hit the road running. You haven't got necessarily 6 to 12 months to convince that you're the right person for that role once you've got it. So
Yeah.
again, it's variable, but that would be my general sort of rule of thumb. I don't know what you think, Zoe. Actually, I turn the tables on the interviewing and just say, I'm not one for thinking that you have a permanent coach who's the same person. And I know
Mm.
some people do that, but that's not something that I want to offer. And of course, it would be easy to sit and say, well, actually, why turn away good revenue when you can just coach somebody forever? But again, it's that stickiness, it's that real change, it's the value that I'm looking for.
I think that's a really good point, because what comes to my mind is two things. There's lots of coaching available for all different types of things. And I do not believe that there is one coach that can do all. I don't believe that. I believe that you have coaches that achieve a specific niche. And I think it's okay to say, this is your niche. So yours is C-suite CEOs, right? C-suite above. That is my niche. And typically, these are the problems that they have.
Mm,
Transition might be one of them, right? And it's very visible, and they're transitioning away from into brilliant. So we very clear. Or they're struggling with landing communication within their team, for example. They've not got rapport within their team, and they're leading a particularly big team because they're a visual part of the business. I understand that. So you wouldn't go to a personal trainer and ask them to train you on sales.
mm, mm.
You wouldn't go to a sales trainer and say, can you teach me the gym? I
Yeah,
mean, if you did, that would be quite unique. If you know, but or
would
finance, you wouldn't go to a personal trainer and say, "Teach me finance." So I think that there's a recognition, and again, it's the end in mind. What are you trying to achieve, and what type of coach would suit that need? I have been caught. I won't say names because, again, I'll take responsibility for this. I was adamant I had this problem. And because I was a bit vulnerable at that time, somebody sold me, and they were a salesperson. They sold me this, but I didn't get the thing that I needed because I was so adamant that that's what I needed. And so I was closed off. I didn't think about the outcome. No, I need to do more sales, so I need a sales coach. No, it was not about that. It was about me saying, how do I get the confidence to get out of my imposter syndrome, to be able to be myself and be able to talk about the things that I deliver with passion,
Mhm.
which for me is that's what sells things to people. It's not about having a sales patter. It's
Yep,
about being
passion.
with the right audience and talking about the problems that you solve. So
Mm,
I had the wrong coach, and it cost me a lot of money. A lot of money. In fact, I earned that much in a year, and I paid in a coach because I believed. And it was so, but what I did learn is this: I needed to be clear, and I needed to have clarity. I needed to know what the outcome I was driving. And you know what I was so pissed at this coach about is that I didn't get the result. But the result wasn't them to deliver. The result is what I needed to deliver. And that was the key learning for me. So did I learn the thing that I was so adamant about? No. But did I learn something so much more powerful? Yes. So in a way, it was never a waste of time. And it wasn't a waste of money because it was mirroring back to me that actually this is on you, Zoe. It's on you. She's not a bad coach.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
not her fault. She did what she said she would do. You come to this agreement in your own mind that it was going to be this, and this, and that she would deliver this. I got it all wrong. And
Absolutely.
so I think that was a wake up call for me around, because I coach people.
Mm.
I've got a client that I've been with for 6 years. It was never intended to be 6 years, and the relationship has changed. And if he's listening to this, he knows exactly why. Because we started out with a 3 million business that wanted to go to a 20 million business. Well, now we're nearly there. We don't talk about that anymore. We're talking about other things, about his team, about helping his team. It's there's lots of it's changed. But I also had the conversation, which was, am I a good coach if I'm staying with you for 6 years? I'm not sure. So I still have this hang up about being with somebody for a period of time. Am I doing the job? I'm not sure I have the answer to that. Maybe you've got some thought.
I think every situation will be individual. The reason I raise that is that I know somebody or I knew somebody who had had a coach for a number of years, and if I'm honest, it was very clear from the interactions. Although obviously I wasn't in the coach, it was very clear that that sort of that had become a reinforcement of behaviour as opposed to a challenge of behaviour or progression. And so, as long as the relationship continues to progress, I wonder whether it falls away from what I'm talking about coaching into more mentoring. I don't know.
I think so. I'm having some thought. I'm having live thoughts about this, thinking maybe I'm not a coach anymore. Maybe I am mentoring, and I still do challenge, but the way I challenge now has changed, and it is also more business perspective than it is introspective. We've done all that work, so it's a good point.
I think that's the difference. And I have no problem with mentoring carrying on because I think that is, for me, and it's only my view, I think that is slightly different in terms of if you're
Yeah,
doing business advisory mentoring. I think the coaching relationship has sort of moved, and that may move. It may move just organically, or it may be something deliberate. There's no right or wrong, by the way. I just, for me, I think maybe because my process has an end result, although you can obviously then do a different outcome, but the actual outcome we can't keep. If you think of it this way, if we sit down and we say we've got 6 sessions lined up, okay, and the outcome is X, if we're still talking about that 20 sessions later, is that right? It feels wrong to me. I might be wrong in saying that, but it feels wrong because why, why is it taking so long? We need to maybe re-engineer, come back to say, was that really the outcome? Or is it multifaceted? Is it layered in so many different things that actually we need to break that outcome down into 6 different things? And maybe that's then okay to be, going on sort of multiple sessions later.
yeah.
That's my sort of thinking. I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but that's sort of
I don't
my
think there
thinking.
is, like you said. I think it's a preference, and I think it balls back down to what we started the conversation with, which is there's a root, right? And there's a cause to that root. So we need to get to that root cause. The root cause needs to be discovered for what purpose? For
Yeah,
what problem are we solving?
yeah,
And I think that these 2 points are so I talk about my business in 2 ways. I do a diagnostics, kind of like a future, a current state right now. Like, what is it right now? What pain are you suffering now?
yeah,
And what outcome do you want? So what is that? Tangible, revenue, client size, business size, geography. It's no different. We're not asking different questions. We're asking exactly the same question. The points between it's the clarity of these 2 points that determine the pathway in between. And
yeah,
your 6 phase process is the stepping stones or ladder, whichever one you want to perceive it as, to from your root cause to your outcome that you want. And I
yeah.
think that that's very clear. And when you're looking at lots of people want that assurance. Will I get what I'm? Well, you're the one. If you say this is what the outcome is, you'll get that outcome. If you don't get the outcome you want, it's because you're not clear about the outcome that you want.
That is true. Yes, I mean my role is to help
Clarity.
with that, but you have to be clear. That's why we spend so much time on the outcome right
Yeah,
at the beginning. Because
I
if you
agree.
just sit there and say, I want X, I want to integrate a team better or a business better, or I want to double revenue, it's like, yeah, but let's get into the meat and bones of that because that in itself is just too high level. What
Yeah.
does it really mean?
What does it really? And actually, I think that's where we grapple. Lots of people, if I say to them, "What do you want?" and it could be about anything, right? It could be about what do you want for dinner. It could be anything. What do you want? Most people start off with this. Well, I don't want. That. And I'm like, so I repeat the question, what would you like? Well, I don't fancy that, or I don't want that. That is fascinating
Yeah.
because that tells me you're discounting what you don't want, but you're not clear on what you do want.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And do
Absolutely.
you see that a lot? Do you get?
Yes. Yes.
I even overhear other people talking, and I smile to myself because I hear them say, "What would you like?" And you go, "Oh, well, I don't want." Well, listen to the question. What do you want?
Yes. Yes. Also, often there's just like nothing really. I'm not bothered. And that's as bad because it's sort of like, well, actually, if you take that into the work context, if you're leading something that's really important, you have to be bothered, you know?
Yeah,
And sometimes that can be just you haven't given it enough space to really think about. You
yeah.
haven't understood the importance of that yet. So again, I think, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I don't know what for tea. Luckily, I know what I'm having. I know what I want to. I'm okay.
Oh, honestly, the food thing is a real dilemma for me at the moment, Craig, because I'll digress for a second. Because for those of you that know me, I'm a diabetic and I have been for a very long time. And as I get older, and as a female that actually has entered into a perimenopausal state, that's another discussion. Um, it has implications because it's all about hormones. And
Mm.
so as I come into the hormone state, of course, I've had to then change medication because it's, evolving and growing and the body's changing and age and all of that. And so now I've had to start this thing called Monjaro. And I don't know if you've heard anything about it, but this is the weight loss drug.
Oh,
And
right.
and so I know many people that have taken it. They're not diabetics. It's just purely about weight loss. I'm taking it and I started taking it nearly a week ago. And
Mm.
by God, I have no appetite. I don't want to eat anything. And when people said to me that there's no food noise, I didn't know what they meant. I really know what they mean because there is no food noise. I forget to eat, I forget to drink until I feel absolutely nauseous and sick. And
Oh,
that
God.
is not healthy, right? So when you talk about food, I'm like, oh, I don't know what I want to eat. So I'm going to have to, but today I've said to myself, I have to think about what I'm going to eat and I have to plan it. Even if I don't want to eat, I've got to eat at certain times and drink
Yeah.
because it's absolutely removed any appetite and desire to eat or drink. Crazy.
These are the side effects of these sort of things people don't realize, I guess. But I think, it's just another thing to add to the list, Zoe, isn't it?
I know,
Another.
self-management. And I'm a founder, I'm a CEO, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm a potential client for a route to result. And actually some of the things that I grapple with as a CEO is maybe not what others will. Mine is about balance. Mine is about balance in all areas of life, starting a new business, running that business, getting it off the ground, visibility, being in the right place, right room, right people, um, doing a PhD, having a mentor, there's so much, and it's all about balance. So, I think that if I look at me and people like me, and maybe other female, I don't know if there's a difference between men and female because I don't have a family, I'm not raising kids. Is that a good thing or bad thing? I'm not sure. But anyway, like someone like me, what would your route to results start with someone like me, Craig? And maybe you'll be my next coach.
Maybe. I actually, it reminds me of somebody that I did coach who was really struggling. They had their own business, but that was creating a lot of conflict in terms of they also had children, young children. It's causing a lot of conflict, both, I think, at home, but also uh, personally and professionally.
Mm.
And we worked through really identifying what was the outcome they truly wanted. Not forget about, but let's work through each of the different things like money, status, perhaps what the effort they've had to put in to get to where they've got to, being their business owner. But really, once you peeled it all back, it was the wrong time for that individual.
Ah, okay.
It just was not the right time, and we got to the point where we realised that a lot of the things they thought they were going to have to let go of were not, did not have to be let go of by joining an organisation. because actually I think people can sometimes put barriers in the way before they've actually even understood whether they're true. And so what ended up happening was this individual did go into an organization, and actually 90%, if not more, of what they felt they were going to lose, they didn't lose,
Isn't that
because they
interesting?
actually understood what was really important, what was the absolute outcome. Pride can get in the way, you know, last loss of status, as I said. So, there's all these sort of things, but when you really peel it back, and that's what we did, or I did with that particular client. And I think, it's been it's been brilliant to see it for them, and how they even tell me now how things have worked out so well. So that's just fantastic. It's actually enabled somebody close to them to make a life change as well. So, by one person making a shift and helping
Yeah.
facilitate that, it's enabled somebody else to.
That's a
Um,
really big important, the ripple. I call that the ripple, right? And this is also so this borders on selfish and selfless. So lots of people could say it's very selfish to be so indulgent and luxurious having, this support. I see that as very selfish when you don't, because your ripple becomes more bigger the more people depend on you, whether
yeah.
it's your family, your children, your team, your business, whatever it might be. There's a dependency. If
Mhm.
you're not the best version of yourself, and you are not in the most authentic, grounded sense that you can be, i.e., I know me, I like me, I know all parts of me, I know what my purpose is, or I know where I'm going, my direction, I know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, I'm very clear about all of that, then there is no way that other people around you can't be impacted by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think that, if you're really honest, I mean, I think that is a really good starting point of understanding if you need a coach, isn't it? And it shouldn't always be with somebody said there's an issue. It should be that self-reflection. And some people maybe are better at that than others, but having an impact on others is quite it's a nice way to be, isn't it? Let's be honest, in a world that's not as kind as it should be and
No,
thoughtful as it
we need to generate that. We need to generate that for ourselves, and make sure our ripple is really strong and for good purpose and reason. I agree with that. And I think there's so much to contemplate when you are, even if you're not thinking about a coach, and it hasn't crossed your mind and you've come across this discussion, I think there's a couple of questions you can ask yourself. Are you ever really ready? I'm not sure that the answer is yes or no. I think it's somewhere in between. But the question that you have to ask yourself is, am I wanting more? Am I wanting more of what? What is it? Am I
is.
looking for growth in my career? Am I looking to grow out of that into something else? Am I looking to have more impact in the world? Am I looking to have more visibility? What is it? And if your answer is yes to any of those, then that is a good time to explore a coach. So it might not be, the coach might not be the vehicle that you've thought about in terms of this aspiration or this direction, and looking at a framework that can get you there. I can guarantee you can do a lot of self work yourself, but until somebody is pushing you and nudging you in a respectful and kind way to get a different outcome, you will not have the same impact trying to do. And even though we have AI, and AI may be a great tool, self coaching tool, it's not at that level. Not at that level.
No,
Um, and it can't be bespoke to you either. It doesn't know everything about you. It doesn't know the questions to ask, and that is the essential part. A great coach knows exactly the questions to ask that will stop you in your tracks, almost smack you in the forehead and say, "Stop here. You need to think about this, and you need to answer this. What is it?" That's
yes,
that's the value of having a coach. They know the questions to ask at the right time,
that's
and that
right.
is instrumental, I believe.
I completely agree. I mean, I think you can't the way that I've set myself up is that it's based around experience,
Yeah.
which can't be bought. You either have experience or you don't, and everyone's experience is different,
Mhm.
and is valuable. But the other thing is judgment, good judgment, and I think that you and I both have a liking of AI, and see the real benefits in it. But one thing that I think that a really good coach will bring that you might not get totally from AI would be judgment. If
Absolutely. Absolutely, and questioning judgment, right? Because there's all judgment, and bearing in mind that the world is a very judgmental place, that we've all got opinions and we've all got our input that we want to give and our perspective. But it is just that. It is just an opinion and it is just a perspective. I love the word discernment. I say that a lot these days, to discern, to judge well. And I think that the more you know yourself, the better you can judge a situation, and we are, I mean, I think of Deepak Chopra, and he has spiritual laws of success, because I consider myself quite spiritual, and I do think about, there's one phrase that he uses, which is, today I will not judge,
Right.
today I have no judgment. And
Yeah.
I've worked very hard to do that. I
Mhm.
realize that that's impossible, because I'm a human. And I have to discern and I have to judge, because some things are going to be right for me and some things are not right for me. So I have to take a stand, and that means to judge, to take a position. And so I think that to do that very well, you have to come from a very grounded and balanced place within yourself. Like you said, that marriage between the instinct, a
Mhm.
data point here and a data point here. I talk about the head and the heart. These
Yeah,
two data points have to be synchronized
that's
and in
right.
alignment with each other. When they are, that's when I'm talking that you will probably likely make the best decisions and choices from that
Completely.
very aligned place. And I can only say aligned place because it feels good in the body. The mind
Mhm.
goes, yes, yes, yes. Like it feels good. And we all know what feels good and what doesn't feel good.
And how many times have you not done that and it's not worked out?
And I say now, even now, and I said this just before Christmas, because Amna and I, um, my co-founder Ammon, we went to Thailand to work 4 weeks together, which I know you know because we'd communicated just before Christmas. And the thing that come to my mind when we were together is that we had very different perspectives. He's a Gen Z. In fact, the podcast is going to come out today. When when Gen X and Gen Z collab, like what happens? It's an explosion, right? It's an explosion of two different things: curiosity, challenge,
Mhm.
judgment. All of these things get brought into question, and I'm left feeling now there is no I'm right because I'm a Gen X and I've got more experience than you.
Yeah.
It's more about sort of having curiosity with what we are exploring, our perspectives, all of that kind of stuff. It was really enlightening and empowering for me to go away from my normal day to day, to be taken out of my comfort zone. And boy, was I out of it. But that was all. I thought about my age very carefully, vulnerable moment. There was a moment that I looked at Ammon, who is half my age, and I looked at him and thought, I am so conscious that I see myself in you. You're driven, ruthless, ambitious, fearless. Like there was a moment of nostalgia that brought great sadness for me because it made me feel, Jesus Christ, I'm 51. Like what happened? What happened to that version of myself that was so alive? And now I feel I'm not, which quickly went into, but that's a choice and decision.
It is. Yeah.
And it's not about age, it's about what you've chosen to live in a bubble, and now everything outside that bubble is very scary and your bubble's very small. And so there was like this moment where all my coaching almost like came into my mind, and I had to sit down and think about all the things I've learned and all the things I've grown and experienced. And it was really a beautiful moment, but it was also a bit bittersweet because it reminded me of this: there
Yeah.
is no more time to waste. If you want an outcome and you want something, you have to act and not
Yes.
sit and marinate and masturbate in the head about what's right and what's wrong. And that's what Ammon taught me. Get out of your thinking, get into doing. Just get on with it. What you think, what was beautiful. So I think that that's a moment to kind of go, coaching is the right thing if you want to be making the different choices and helping somebody and not your family member. Can't have family members coach you.
No.
Never. Don't do it. Best friends, don't do it. Don't try.
Well, on the podcast, I've got examples of that. I go, but I certainly don't do that. But I've got some good examples I can give in another episode at a future date. It'd be quite funny.
Oh my God, we should. And of course, Craig, you know that I'm very fond of you and I really believe in what you're doing. Anyone listening to this, I hope it's been enlightening for you in some way to think about what type of coach you want. We know that Craig's a coach that's a C-suite and above. We know the types of experience that Craig has got. You really should check out Route to Result. Follow Craig on LinkedIn and connect. It all starts with a conversation. So I really, really want to follow the journey and help in any way that I can because I really believe in this. And this comes from somebody, and I'm talking to the listeners specifically. If you don't know about me, I am a psychologist. I know my shit. I don't know everyone else's stuff. I know that I tick. I know how I do, and I know who I am. And that has only been come through not because I'm a psychologist, but because of our great people around me helping me. And all of those experiences of coaching has come tenfold. So all of that combination has done me no wrong, but it doesn't mean to say I know everything. And the coaching experience won't end for me. It's still going. And I'm looking at me and Amma next going, if we want to be in the 1% and we want to be enjoying this outcome, we need coaches. And it's an ongoing thing. And it's not because we're doing anything wrong. It's because we need help. And I can't coach him and he can't coach me.
Yeah,
We're too
yeah,
close.
too
It's too
close.
close. So anyway, on that note, Craig, thank you. Thank you so much for giving your wisdom and time. And I'm just so grateful.
I'm grateful to you as well, and likewise, as you called out, if people aren't following you, then they should, because I think you make a lot of sense. I think we just talk normal language. We're just grounded people, and ultimately, I think that I've learned a lot from you. So thanks for your support as well, and look forward to working with you in whatever capacity. Coming back on another podcast
Absolutely.
in the future.
Totally. I really appreciate it. And for all of those of you that have listened, thank you so much for being here. We always love feedback. What do you want to hear less of, more of? Who do you want to be connected with? This is all about connection and community. As I'm learning, my story is always unfolding. I don't have all my shit together. I don't know everything, and neither will I ever. But it's nice to be on the journey. So until next time, thank you so much again to Craig. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on ZED Talks. Bye for now.
Bye bye.